Hello everyone and welcome back to the HJW Gaming channel. This video is going to be a continuation of my beginner basics guides. If you haven't seen any of the previous ones and want to check them out, I'll have the link to the playlist in the description. So in this video, I'm going to be looking further into how to get gold and what gold can be spent on. This is one of the most core elements of the game, but if you don't know all the best ways to get gold, then you could be wasting a massive opportunity and handicapping yourself against more experienced players. So definitely make sure to use these to get as much gold as possible to give you every possible advantage. So the first way to get gold, and the most common way, is through your gold levy. Your gold levy can be found within your keep as one of the options, and this is a set amount of gold that can be gained every 2 hours by clicking the levy button. Those who have gems can also double this for a cost of 100 gems. Though this is an inefficient use of gems in my opinion, so I wouldn't recommend it unless you have gems to burn. The amount of gold you get from the levy isn't fixed and it can be increased in several ways. The main way that you can contribute yourself is through building up certain things within your keep. So as you build up your main keep, you'll gain the ability to improve the various troop quarters associated with different factions. As these are upgraded, they will increase the amount of gold available to you from the levy. So it's definitely useful to upgrade these as soon as possible at the beginning of a season, so you get that extra influx of gold as early as possible. In later seasons, some control points, when captured, can also grant additional gold per levy. If you go into your fellowship and then also click boosts, you can see all the different boosts that you're getting from the control points that you own. If you're playing the Rebuilding Glory campaign, like I am currently, you can also see the level of various keeps, and if you level them up by sending troops over there to do the various tasks and get those keeps up in level, often that will increase the amount of additional gold that they offer you. So this is a great way, again, of increasing the gold levy available for everyone in your faction. The second great way to gain gold is through the Heart of a Hero event, available every weekend. During this time, bosses will spawn on large tiles, so 200 plus power tiles. These bosses have been dragons or balrogs in the early seasons, but new bosses such as the Watcher in the Water, or giant spiders or huorns are introduced in later seasons. Dealing damage to a boss grants you rewards and ranking in the top 5 damage dealt for each boss. Once that boss is defeated, it gives you 3 chests which contain speed up boosts and an amount of gold. The amount of gold you get from the chest depends on how far you are through your chapter progression within your season. This amount increases as the season goes on. The important thing to note when attacking and trying to defeat these bosses is there is 5 places available for rewards to those who do the most damage. So don't go off and solo the boss and just kill it on your own to try and get as much gold as quickly as possible. It's better and good form to allow 4 other teammates to also attack so that you and your teammates can get the maximum gold reward shared out between you. One mistake I made in my early seasons is not realising that you can attack and place on the leaderboard of many different bosses, not just one. And for each of these you do, you get rewards every single time. So you don't just have to settle for the single set of rewards. You can actually get multiple chests of gold and just keep stacking up that gold. So it's recommended during the weekend to attack and defeat as many as possible. For a recommended commander to defeat these bosses, I really recommend using Dwalin. If you maximise his Warrior of the Lonely Mountain tree, which reduces damage dealt to his troops, but also very importantly the fire damage dealt to the troops, this can be massively useful for countering against the Balrog and Dragon bosses. Additionally, you can also use things such as his healing skill trees to reduce troop loss further, and you can upgrade his Giant Slayer skill tree to deal more damage to the bosses. So he can do a hell of a lot of damage with very little troop loss. Particularly late on in the season, if you get your Dwalin to a high level, he'll deal enormous amounts of damage in one hit without needing multiple draws. for very, very little troop loss. So I definitely recommend using him. The third way that you can gain gold is just simply through Matham tips in the tavern. So when you look at your tips in the tavern, sometimes these can offer gold as a reward, and you simply have to send your commander off to do them for the 1, 2, however long hour period, and once that time has elapsed, if you don't use a speed up, you will then gain the rewards, which can sometimes include gold. You can also gain additional tips by sweeping mobs, so the AI armies that are stationary on a tile. If you sweep these, sometimes you will get bonus tips present in your tavern, which if you then complete, will grant you gold and experience for your commanders. So if you're in low gold and you need some urgently, just send out a ton of commanders to sweep around the low level armies around you, and not only will they level up, you could also get some of these gold granting tips. And finally, one of the last ways you can get gold is by selling equipment to the merchant in the tavern. I recommend only doing this if you don't need that gear to do the imparting wisdom to grant additional equipment familiarity and skill points to your commanders. Definitely prioritise this first and the gold second. However, if you do not need this gear, then you can go to the merchant in the tavern and click to sell, and then I'd recommend selecting all of your green and blue gear that you are not using and selling across to him for large amounts of gold. Towards the end of one of your seasons, what you can actually do is just try and stack up all of this equipment that you get from the free Matham chest, not sell it back, because towards the end of seasons you tend to not need gold as badly, and then you can save it for when the start of your next season comes around, and if you sell it at the start of that next season, you get a massive early injection of gold. Another common mistake I quite often see from new players in particular is selling purple or sometimes even gold rarity gear. And I implore you to never ever do this, as gold and purple gear is much rarer and much more important than blue and green. So never sell these two rarities of gear. Only sell the blue and the green rarity gear. So that covers all the best ways to get gold. So let's just take a very brief look at what you can spend your gold on. So firstly, you can go into the market and you can look to spend it on additional resources or boosts as you see fit. As you can see here, there's various options to exchange some resources for another type of resource, and also to use gems to purchase both of these boosts and resources. However, sometimes you will also get the option to buy both of these things with gold. The amount of resources and then the corresponding gold cost increases as you go through your season. This is designed to keep it kind of in line with the amount of resources you're generating and will need in your keep. As obviously being able to get 250k of various resource very early in a season would be a little bit overpowered, particularly for those who could spend gems on refreshing their market. The second way you can spend your gold is if you have a neutral camp, gold is required for the hiring of a neutral unit. Be careful when doing this, as some neutral units, such as Oathbreakers for example, can cost an extortionate amount of gold to hire. So don't just constantly prioritise hiring these neutral units and not upgrading your troops, as leaving your troops unupgraded will make them much, much weaker. Speaking of which, this is the final way that you can spend your gold. So if you go into each individual troop, you'll see that they have additional bonus skills that you can spend gold on to upgrade the troop. As I just said, if you don't upgrade your troop, then you basically miss out on a massive amount of potential for that troop. If you spend too much gold elsewhere, then your troops may become underdeveloped compared to your competitors, and if you end up in war with some of these and they have more upgraded troops, they're likely to defeat you because they have those extra additional bonuses. So definitely prioritise upgrading your troops as much as possible to make them stronger in battle before you spend all of your gold on neutral units. Anyway, with that is now the end of my gold guide. I really hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please drop a like and please subscribe. It makes a massive difference to me and my channel, and I would really, really appreciate it. And you can stick around to see more of these tips and tricks coming up in the future. And with that, I really hope to see you on the next one.